Hey there traders, how's it going? Welcome to my market outlook on index futures for the week of September 28th. Now first and foremost, this week is going to be non-farm payroll week. This is going to be the first Friday of the month, so definitely you want to be careful on Friday morning going into the 8:30 news. I'll definitely recommend against getting into a trade before the nose and trying to hold through it. Now, if I were to trade at all this week, I would target Monday and Tuesday for some opportunities and then pretty much just take a break for the rest of the week. Starting on the weekly chart for ES, you can see that we do have relative equal lows here, but remember from my last week's analysis that there's no reason to be a higher time frame bearish unless we start closing below this weekly fair value gap. Remember, that is my minimum requirement. Until we do have a closure below this fair value gap, you should try to remain bullish. So as we go into the daily chart, keep an eye on this weekly fair value gap. I thought like price could come down here and use it to bounce price up. But also last week, we have a pretty long wick on the lower portion. So 50% of this lower wick, I want to keep an eye out on this as well. All right, so here's ES on the daily chart, and until we violate this weekly fair value gap, I'm not really going to be paying attention to anything under it. So this swing low, if we go into this fair value gap and then bounce price up higher. So I did mark out 50% of this wick, and now I even put in 75% of this wick, because as you can see, last week on Thursday, we did go into 50% of this wick, but more specifically 75%. Look, it just stopped right there to the tick. And that was also within a daily fair value gap. Then price bounced up and it closed within the range. So this could just be it, and we may start heading up higher. There's no like fair value gaps on the daily chart, but I want to go one step deeper. Let's go down to a 1 hour chart and just see what it looks like. All right, so here we are on the 1 hour, and you can see why I am still long-term bullish, because you can see back here at the all-time highs, this was a pretty prolonged, well, not really prolonged, but a little bit of a consolidation here, right? So equal highs, there's going to be a lot of buy side liquidity above here. So I'm really looking for this to be the target, maybe going into this week, maybe the week after this week, we'll see. But price did come down all the way to this daily fair value gap, took the sell side here, went down to 75% of that lower daily wick, came up, consolidated, and then you can see this whole move right here is pretty balanced. A lot of up and down movement here. I'm not really seeing any inefficiency except for this 1 hour fair value gap. So you could try to pay attention to this going into early next week. All right, so moving on to Nasdaq, this is the weekly chart, and I was looking for price to come down to this weekly fair value gap. It didn't do it, but instead we created another weekly fair value gap. So going into this week, I want to pay attention to both of these fair value gap. There is a chance that we could go into one of these, probably the top one if either one, right? Also, last week we have a pretty long wick on the lower portion of this candle, so I'm marking out 50% of this. I have these fair value gaps with a green color because once we go down to the daily chart, you'll see that there's a lot of overlap with the daily fair value gap. So this is just to distinguish the different time frames so we don't get confused. Okay, daily chart for Nasdaq, and this is a little bit confusing. I know there's a bunch of stuff here, so let's just go through it real quick one by one. So this weekly fair value gap, I was looking for this to be used as support last week. We may or may not get down here, but we do have this long daily wick. I do have 50% of that marked out, and that is within the weekly fair value gap that we just created. So there's a chance that we could just go down to 50% of this week and then bounce price up for new all-time highs. Now I still have this wick, 50% of this wick marked out as well, because this is part of the daily fair value gap. You can see that Thursday and Friday we did go down into this old fair value gap on the daily chart. But look at the bodies. The bodies are pretty much staying above this daily fair value gap. It's staying above 50% of this wick. And then remember in pink, that's going to be 50% on the weekly lower wick. So the bodies tell the story, the wicks do the damage. So the bodies are telling me that we don't really want to be going through all of these fair value gaps. In fact, we're respecting it according to the bodies of the candles. So this could be enough, and we may be looking for new all-time highs going into this week. And just like ES, I want to go ahead and go down to the hourly chart to see if we could get a little bit more detail. Okay, so here on the hourly chart, you can see that all-time highs, we had this consolidation here, equal highs, just like ES. There's a large pool of buy-side liquidity. This is definitely a big target for smart money. So I'm definitely going to be looking for price to go up here. Now that we've already came down and worked into some of these inefficiencies on the daily chart. Price came back up. There's consolidation here, a lot of up and down movement. So I'm looking at this as kind of a balanced price range, right? There's no real inefficiency. The only thing I see is this 1 hour fair value gap. So you can keep your eye on this going into next week. It is noteworthy that it is at the high of this daily fair value gap. So perhaps this daily fair value gap will come into play. So definitely keep an eye out on this inefficiency, and this may give you an opportunity to get long for new all-time highs. But remember, this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion, my analysis. But thank you once again for checking out my market outlook. You can help me out by giving this video a like and subscribing for more analysis like this. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my sentiments for this week, and definitely be careful out there. Remember, it is non-farm payroll this week. You don't want to get caught with the Friday news. So stay safe and safe trading.